Okay, thank you very much. Please do interrupt if you see really important questions hanging around, or we can still capture the questions at
Sure,
the end.
sure, sure. I'll let you know. Sure.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining this session, and thank you, Shakir, for having me. It's an honor. It's the first time for me for the Tech Day Pakistan. So I'm really glad I made it. I had some technical difficulties, but it was on my side. So a very, very short introduction about myself. I was lucky enough to recently become a Microsoft MVP, which basically means I'm doing a lot of stuff for the community. I spend a lot of free time, free hours, evenings, answering a lot of questions from people in my network. And I try to do that also by trying to grasp onto the Microsoft roadmap. And as you probably all know, that is almost a full-time job on itself. Besides that, I'm also, well, I'm married. I'm also a father of two. And I've been a consultant for the major part of my career, so almost 17 years or almost 18, I think. I do work as a consultant. It's a bit of a mixture of the roles I take on projects. So well, the official title is Trusted Advisor for Microsoft 365 at The Flow. It's a small company, 40 people. But we are part of a larger group in Belgium. So it's a Belgian-based company, and the group is 9,000 technology consultants. So that's a rather large one. It's an important thing, and I'll tell you in a minute why this is important. And basically, I love to talk. So usually I end up within the timing I get. So if not, Shakir, please do interrupt. But I'm doing some timekeeping today. So let's dive into this. The first thing I want to mention, or I want to open with, is, well, recently, or quite recently, let's say these days, there were some changes when we talk about Copilot, and we talk today about Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's the latest, the current official name for this segment of Copilot. And well, until recently, organizations had to be had to buy licenses through their enterprise agreement. They had to buy at least 300 licenses for an entire year for their users. And they need to have Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 licenses. You can imagine for a lot of organizations, that's a big bet, right? So approximately $30 per user per month, 300, that's over 100K for something you haven't tested yet. Of course, this changed on January 16th. That's the day I remember quite well because it really blew my agenda away. I had to take everything, throw it out. Everything became Copilot from that point forward, or more or less at least. And the big changes were that organizations do not need to buy licenses only through their enterprise agreement, but also through their well, the companies they buy the licenses from through CSP, it's called. They could buy just one license if they like, one up to 299. And also in the license or requirements was a shift. So you do not need a Microsoft 365 account anymore, but also Office 365, E3 and E5 is now good enough for you to buy your first Copilot for Microsoft 365 licenses. So again, 300 licenses, that's a big bet. And this is, of course, a huge change in the Copilot landscape. What does this mean? Finally, we are able to pilot Copilot, right? It was in the name all along, but we weren't able to pilot Copilot. But now, of course, we can, because we can just buy a couple of those licenses. And now we can think of a lot of creative ways to organize structurally a pilot. Now, because of this, the amount of questions from organizations and customers, but also other organizations, really exploded. And there was, for me, it was really clear there was this one particular question that they kept on coming with, right? And that's, of course, the key topic of today. What is not just the ROI, but what is the real ROI of Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365? And I know they could just buy one license, But still, even just one license, it's a commitment for at least 1 year. So that's still $360 for something you don't know what you're going to get. So you might need to think about this. What's the real value that we will get out of it? And the easy answer for this session, and this would be the shortest session for today if this was the only answer, of course. But if you just look online, Google or Bing it as you like, you look for an answer on this question, you will almost always stumble upon this formula. And it's a very easy one, right? And why do we love it? Because we love easy solutions for complex problems. That's what we love. We're human. That's okay. So today, I think it's my task to question this formula, right? So looking at this formula, we just need to have the current value of the investment minus the cost divided by that same cost. What do we know today to fill in this formula? And of course, I already mentioned it. It's this $30 price tag per user per month. Now, what do you get for this? It depends also who you're talking to, right? So I'm a consultant. I talk to a lot of organizations, and well, originally I'm really a tech consultant. So my network really exists out of a lot of IT managers, CIOs, and when you talk about the $30 price tag with them, they almost always tell you the same story. It's the same response you get. Like, I'm already paying, I don't know, 30, 35, $40, something like that, for my users for an entire collaboration suite, a modern cloud collaboration suite. And now you're asking me an additional $30 for what? Is it a gimmick? Well, it hasn't proven itself yet. So that's a huge amount of money. So we're actually not talking to the right people. The same day that I had this discussion with this IT manager for a company of approximately 1,000 people, I also had a chat with the R&D manager in the afternoon. And she was talking about meetings. We were having a different chat. But she was talking about her meetings, which are double and sometimes triple booked. She couldn't attend them. They hired somebody to take the meeting notes, but it was quite clear that this person that was taking notes did not really understand what the meeting was about. It's sometimes very complex matter which you're talking about. You're also gathering tasks, following up on those tasks, taking action items to the next phase. And I said, "Oh, wait a second. I might have an answer for this really soon," because back then they still had to buy 300 licenses, so I knew something was coming. So I told her, I might have a solution for all of those things you just mentioned, but it comes with a price tag. It comes with a cost. I just said, it's $30 per user per month. Now, the reaction was quite different from the IT manager because this R&D manager, she really just started laughing about me. So you're talking about this huge thing that could solve a lot of problems, which I just discussed, and it's only going to cost me $30, right? So an R&D manager, they talk about, well, especially this organization, they do this very, very tremendous, huge million of dollars projects. So what's $30 for these kinds of pains, right? And this is a really important message today. So it's all about perspective. It all depends who you're talking or who you're discussing this matter with, yeah? And what IT managers often do is they really try to compare apples with oranges. And well, you cannot do that, right? It's not just AI versus an entire collaboration suite. No, 1 + 1 is 3 in this case, right? So you need to look deeper. So back to our formula. Again, what do we know? Of course, we know it's a $30 price tag. Now we need to dive into the matter of the current value of the investment. Again, for now, I'm just following this formula. You'll find it anywhere online. So we're looking at this formula, right? This is just some fictive figures. Let's assume you have an employee. Its monthly cost is $4,000. Based on a 21 work days, you get to 23.81 as an hourly cost. Now looking at Copilot, have a monthly cost of $30, which we already discussed. And of course, the minutes saved per week due to Copilot, of course, as any consultant would say, it depends. This 45 is not fictive because it's more or less the gains that I get out of it today. It might get a bit more if I get more time to invest a bit more of my time dedicated into using Copilot more in depth. But let's assume 45. For some people, it's half an hour. For some people, it's an hour plus something, right? So 45. Let's take this as a safe measure. If you put this on a monthly basis, of course, this is 3 hours. So 3 hours saved, and the hourly cost is $23. That makes $71 of costs saved per month, right? So that's an easy one. So looking at the ROI formula, if you have your 71 minus 30 divided by 30, and you get a number. If you multiply it by 100, you get your ROI percentage, right? This might look like a good idea or seem like a good idea when you talk to a CFO, but again, well, they know it's not, it can't be this easy, right? So everything above 100 is what you want. If you have 100%, it's like a break even, your investment and the value you get out of it. So this looks very promising, right? Now again, from my perspective, because all this situation is based on my perspective from the things I've seen, I've learned over the past, well, it's a couple of months already. I think this formula is not the answer, but it's actually the problem, right? I do not believe very strongly in this formula. And just, I know it looks a bit like a gimmick, but there are a lot of formulas out there. And it's not because there are some formulas out there that everybody believes in that they're true or that you need to use them. So just one simple example. I don't have a lot of interaction here, but just be honest with yourself. I think many of you have already heard about the 10,000 steps per day you should take every day to stay healthy, right? It's probably also in all of your smart watches or your smartphones, right? It's there. Everyone knows it, right? Now I can tell you, and maybe I hope this is not the only thing you take home if you're not already at home. You take home with you today. But this 10,000 steps per day has no scientific structure underneath. So it was founded in the 1960s when the Olympics were coming to Japan. And they were looking for a marketing campaign about a pedometer, right? So a small device counting your steps. And they found that this character resembles 10,000 and it looks a bit like a walking or a running person. And this is the only reason why today we're all talking about 10,000 steps per day. Right?
Interesting, yeah.
So look it up. It's there. I didn't invent this, so this is really facts. So again, back to this formula. This is also why you need to be very critical. So it's not about just an ROI or a percentage. It's all about what value do I get based on my investment, right? What do I get out of it? And again, it is not about cost savings, right? So you can do the math. So 71 minus 30 is 41 something. But the employee in this scenario is still working 8 hours per day, and you're still going to have to pay him $4,000 per month, right? And on top of that, you need to pay the $30 license. So it's not about cost savings, but it's actually all about the time allocation. So in this case, per month for this one individual, it's 3 hours, right? You want 3 hours, 3 whole hours, and that is a lot. Now, what if we could scale this, right? So you get one employee, 3 hours per month. That's okay. Now, what if you could scale this to a team of people? So not just 30 individuals within the organization, but perhaps 30 people of a larger team, right? You can do your own math. It's not very complicated. But if you take, again, these 45 minutes, one on average per licensed or Copilot licensed user, and you multiply it for these 30 people, these 3 hours per week, that's 100, again, 135 days per year that you gain from using Copilot, only with these 30 people, right? 135. That's a huge number, right? So one person, one team, and of course you can scale this to multiple teams, right? That doesn't it makes a lot of sense. And this is also, and I come to this again later on in this presentation, this is also why this is a very good strategy to involve entire teams in when piloting Copilot, instead of randomly spreading Copilot licenses within your organization. Right. So if they work together, those people, you can actually accumulate their time saved. That's why I was talking about these 135 days. Uh, they can also easily share their findings very easily with each other because obviously they already work in a team. They know each other. They work together, right? So that obviously makes a lot of sense. And this could be scaled if you want to pay for it, obviously, across the organization. Also, these findings, I didn't mention this yet. I told you I was working for a larger group of 9,000 people. This is relevant information. Because of that, we were able to join the early access program. So I've been using Copilot since August last year, talking to a lot of other early access program customers or organizations. So again, all of these findings are based on all of their information bundled together. Right. So what can you do with this time? With this, one time, a lot of things. And I think you should focus on generating business value, because also if you just Google it or watch the marketing movies from Microsoft, which look very, very good, by the way, they all talk about competitive advantages and such. But this can only work when you can accumulate that time, not just summarizing or adding up all the individual time one. It's just individual time, right? So you should really reinvest the time in, and just some examples, again, try to gain competitive advantages. I'm always saying to a lot of customers, if you're not using it, your competitor is, right? So they will gain the added value, so you might be the one running behind. Right? A really important one. If you can use Copilot for doing a lot of boring tasks, summarizing things, helping you when you have a brain fog, so you're not very creative, these are actually good use cases for Copilot. You can use that time to invest in the actual relationship with your customers, so they can feel that you're really there for them instead of just typing documents and programming things, right? So that there again, it's just one of the ideas. Something I heard from two early access program customers, and they said, finally, we found the time to invest or to start these R&D projects, which we never had time for before. So if those become a success, again, you can generate business value or you can generate competitive advantages. And something that's a bit harder to measure, but still it is possible to measure, is to increase your employee happiness. Um, we're all looking for, all the organizations are looking for the same smart, techie people, hard to find, and it's even more problematic when they leave your company and you have to find new people. So that's a very costly process. So if you can keep your employees happy through using Microsoft Copilot, well, you should definitely do that. And you're all smart people, so you can think of your own scenarios from within your own organization. So it's really important to understand that there is no real one-size-fits-all approach to make this Copilot magic happen, right? Now, this is actually to structure this more. This is why I just came up with these 5 principles, and they're up for discussion. This is just from my personal perspective. So these 5 principles, the first one, when you want to assign Copilot licenses, make sure, and this is quite an obvious one, select knowledge workers, right? So Microsoft Copilot, or Copilot for Microsoft 365, if I'm correct, is using the Microsoft Graph and all of your data. So it's really for knowledge or information workers, or white collars, if you like to call them like that. The second one, and it's a crucial one in your success rate, you really should be able to find enthusiastic people. So not just the people that are, well, now using Copilot because their boss or manager asked them to, they really need to be enthusiastic. You should also focus on relevant scenarios. And again, I'm going to deep dive a bit on these 5 in the next couple of minutes, right? So focus on relevant scenarios. So critical one. The fourth one, set up a COE or, well, Center of Excellence and a community to gather all of your knowledge, centralize everything. And the last one, again, it's classic to say, last but not least, but definitely not least, is to measure and adapt your Copilot approach within your organization. I always say that Copilot is like a ship. You bought a ship, right? You put everyone with a license on the ship and you push it ashore. It's out in the open. How are you going to navigate? Right? You need to measure and adapt. This is your compass for your ship, right? So it's a critical one. So let's deep dive a bit more there. Again, on here I'm taking the first and the second principle together. You'll see in a second why. Focus not only on knowledge workers, but also make sure to include managers and enthusiastic managers. They are really the key to success. They're also often, let's say, influencers towards the team, right? So people look up to them. Even if you turn it around, again, when years ago, when everybody was moving to Microsoft Teams, those managers that kept on sending emails, they had a really big influence on the team because no one was sending Teams messages not to their manager because they would expect probably to send out emails. Right? So enthusiastic managers that are influencing the team in a positive way is really important. Also something we learned from Microsoft based on their lessons learned on the early access programs throughout the world. So I think it was 600 organizations or so. Yeah, I think. They also learned that managers, in many occasions, they were actually trained to give concrete and concise, very specific assignments, right? And this is actually exactly what Copilot expects from prompts, right? When you're sending a prompt to Copilot. So really important to really include also managers. But again, not only those enthusiastic managers, but also the team. I briefly mentioned it. They can influence each other within the team because they know each other, they work together. And this is also, it's much more easy to measure the benefits from Copilot when they're using it as a team. So you can just question a manager or some individuals of the team instead of spreading out 100 licenses, for example, across the organization to be politically correct and to not to leave out any of the divisions. It's going to give it's much more. There's a lot more effort into it to measure the impact there. So the third principle is, well, like I said, focus on the right scenarios. And this also is a lessons learned from myself. Until months ago, when we were setting up pilots or rolling out Copilot at organizations, we also had, of course, some Inspire sessions or the art of the possible sessions, as Microsoft like to call them. If you show to your end users, like, I don't know, 30 or 50 different scenarios of how you could use Copilot and how it could save you some time, you're really blowing them away. You're actually pushing them away because it's just too much information for them to comprehend. And it's like, wow, it's shiny and sparkly, it looks good. And then they're back at their desk, they're going to work, and they see this huge pile of work again. Maybe they remember 2 or 3 different scenarios. They try to prompt some things here and there. It's not working immediately. They forget it because there's still a lot of work, and they're not using Copilot efficiently anymore from that point forward. Right? So you need to ask every individual which you assign a license to think about what kind of work do you do today? Which kind of tasks do you perform today? Not tomorrow, not overall, just today. If that's hard, you can even ask them to think about a week. Sometimes it's easier to structure or divide your work over an entire week. Right? So this is your day, the blue bar. In this case, it's an example from one of the managers of one of our customers. The blue bars were things like sometimes somebody is summarizing a document and I need to read it, or I need to draft an email, or I need to yeah, summarize things, generate an introduction or a management summary based on a document. Those are the blue chunks on the side, the smaller ones. The big ones were in this case very clearly Microsoft Teams or Teams in general. So there are a lot of Teams meetings running behind, again, double, triple booked also here in this scenario, trying to catch up on all of those things. And in between the meetings, they were running around with their mobile phones, scrolling through their Outlook, again, drowning in their Outlook, actually. So in this case, for this person, the core of their tasks on a weekly basis was very clearly Outlook and Teams meetings. And this is where you need to focus. This is what they're doing today, where they are losing a lot of time today, right? This is frustrating for them. And this is where you need to try to map hero scenarios. So Copilot hero scenarios for these tasks. And only this way they can start benefiting from Copilot as soon as possible, also through their center of excellence or a community that owns those hero scenarios. So let's focus on these scenarios. This is a crucial one. A fourth principle, like I mentioned, setting up a center of excellence and including especially ambassadors. So you need probably also your project sponsor or project co-pilot license sponsor, but also include a lot of ambassadors. Now, what they need to do is to gather all of the co-pilot announcements, because you probably also know that Microsoft is just spitting out the roadmap of Copilot. New things are coming. New languages will be rolling out. I know one of them is Dutch in the coming month or two. So it's really important for me because that's our mother tongue. So looking forward to that. But they need to gather all of the knowledge from Microsoft and to filter it and to spread the announcements within the organization for whom it's relevant. What they also could do is organize regularly sessions. This could be just a webinar, could be something more interactive. There was one customer that talked about every third Thursday of the month, they will be having a Copilot cafe, right? So it's just bringing people together, inspiring each other, focusing on what works, what doesn't. Also here, Microsoft delivers a lot of knowledge, and I mean knowledge as in documents, content, movies. But they're not all very relevant for every organization. So also here, there's a role for the Center of Excellence and their ambassadors to filter, to centralize, but also to generate, where necessary, their own knowledge content. And of course, makes sense, I think, there should be the center, it's literally the name, the center of Copilot excellence. So they need to be able to provide guidance, best practices, expertise within the organization. And from my perspective, this group, and it's a small group of people, should also be responsible for tracking and measuring the usage or the benefits from Microsoft Copilot. As part of this fourth principle, you have your center of excellence, but I also mentioned a community. So this is more, well, like a community is, it's people-based, so everybody has something to say. When in the community, it's less structured. So this is basically meant to connect people with Copilot licenses across the organization and to easily share their ideas, things that work, things that don't work, or will this be working soon, right? Things like that. So very important. And it's not taking a lot of effort to set up a community, right? Just to keep that in mind. It's also a very good feedback channel. Of course, people can create a ticket at a service desk, but here it's more a discussion within the community that often solves itself when people talk about it. It's also a good one when people share their do's and don'ts, but also their do's specifically here to detect these new hero scenarios. So for specific use cases, detect new hero scenarios that work for them. But also here you can see who is really enthusiastic, and you can do some due diligence and you can see who's really having influence within the organization. Those are best candidates you can have for new ambassadors. And the last principle, measure and adapt. Again, this should be your compass for your Copilot ship, if you will, right? And from our perspective, there is no better adoption approach than a data-driven approach because it's really tangible. Right? And there is a lot of data already out there to use, right? So something that people often forget, and I also just mentioned it, is the service desk. So I see in our organization, if something's not working with Copilot, you get a strange error message. Sometimes it's still a bit struggling with different languages, using them simultaneously. I know I live in Belgium. It's a very, very small country compared to Pakistan, but we have 3 official languages and even English. So it's it's sometimes a bit difficult in our small country. So service desk has a lot of information because all of the tickets are created there, and you can dive into them. You should also use your community to find there what's living amongst Copilot users, what's working, what's not. Also use survey data. I'm also a big fan of Pulse surveys, so not Viva Pulse, it could be any kind of tool or just sending out a simple form. But questioning your audience is a very crucial one. Again, think about employee happiness. This is most likely one of the only ways to really measure this, right? What else do you have? You have your Microsoft 365 admin portal. So also there are some Copilot reports, and more or less the same reports you can find in the Power BI Copilot dashboard. I don't have a link here, but you can just Google very easily for Power BI Copilot dashboard, and it's free. You can install it or enroll it, connect it to your data, and if you have, of course, the right amount of permissions within your organization on your tenant, you can gather all of those information directly from within Power BI. And then there's this new kid on the block. They are rolling it out now. I've seen some insights already at some of the customers. Not everyone has it already, I noticed. And that is the Copilot dashboard in Viva Insights. And I see a lot of people thinking, oh, okay, Viva Insights, here we go again, more licenses to buy. Yes and no, right? I will tell you in a second what I mean by that. So it's actually good news. Now, again, I told you there's a lot of information, but you need to specify for your organization which are these, measurement blocks on this slide, which you will be focusing on. Don't try to do everything simultaneously. Try to find out which information do we have where and which one is really valuable for us to be able to steer, measure, and adapt our Copilot approach. So, Copilot dashboard in Viva Insights. So we have some insights on this dashboard. And the cool thing is, for what I'm going to show you now, until I say so, so these things I will show you now, you do not need to have a Viva Insights license for it. So it's running in Viva Insights, but just like your personal insights, you do not need a specific license for that. So just a glimpse of what the value of this dashboard could be. You have 4 sections at this moment, so it could be more in the future. So you have your readiness, your adoption, impact, and sentiment, right? And this high-level dashboard gives you already some information. Let me just quickly enlarge my screen here. It's a bit more readable. So in this case, you can see we have 5,000 employees and how much people are using it. In the organization. If I scroll a bit down, you can see how many people are eligible or actually technically ready for having a Copilot license and things like that. On the adoption dashboard, also a very interesting one because you can say, okay, this is a fictive one because not a lot of organizations have thousands of Copilot licenses already. So in this case, 2,450 employees have a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license. And you can see, wow, 2,000 of them are using Copilot in Microsoft Teams. But I would say the other way around, it's 450 people that are not using it Copilot in Microsoft Teams. Right? That's almost 20% of your entire Copilot population. Yeah. So there are a lot of things you can derive from these dashboards. There's more cool stuff. Here you can see let's say I don't know, the top four Office applications here. So Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. So these are the ones currently shown in the dashboard. Here you can see how many users used Copilot for summarizing documents or actually creating presentations, generating drafts, summarizing meetings. You can also toggle, so go back again. So you have your user account. You can toggle it to actions per user, and this tells you a little bit more on average how much does a user use Copilot to rewrite documents or to draft documents, how many times. So also cool things here, cool insights. The impact dashboard, if I'm really honest, there's some information there. It's useful. It can be useful for, let's say, top level management to see, okay, what could be the value that Copilot can bring us. But I think, well, it's a bit high level, to be quite honest, for me personally. So I usually skip this part a little bit faster. And then there's this sentiment. Also, this is based on survey data. So you can use any survey tool you like. Could be Microsoft Form, could be even, I don't know, I should say this here, but any Google or whatever form you have out there. You can just import the data afterwards, or an admin can import them in the admin center. And then the results will also show up here, right? So this is very good to know. Now let's move on to the really cool stuff. And for this, I explicitly put it here on the slide on the top right corner. For this, you do need Viva Insights licenses required, right? So actually, all the people you want to measure need a Viva Insights license. So not the entire organization. That's not necessary here for most of the insights you can get out of this. In general, most of the dashboards or insights are the same if you have a Viva Insights license versus if you don't have this license. The big difference now is you can really segment your data. So you can filter out specific metrics. You can compare one group amongst another or against another. You can use job function titles or basically, well, your content, which is in, well, Azure Active Directory, or should I say Entra ID these days. So you can pull out or pull in actually those data through Viva Insights, and then you can use it here to filter a bit more. And there are some additional dashboards because, well, you can't do this if you're looking this on a global scale, but with the Viva Insights licenses, you can drill down. I got a question from a customer before, so I'm trying to be ahead of your questions about this. It is still like Viva Insights. This is aggregated, actually anonymized data. If you're doing a Copilot pilot track and you buy less than 25 licenses, you will not see any data showing up on this Viva Insights Copilot dashboard at all, right? So you need 25 to be able to aggregate anonymously the data in here. These are just some bad examples, I think, with a photo of the groups. It could be teams within your organization. But here you can see Cecil Folks or Mona Keynes, part of the organization. I would suggest to, well, anonymize this part more even on a team level. But you can derive all of the other, you can make distinctions between the teams, between Outlook. So it's just some glimpse here, right? So it's very interesting to see why certain parts of the organization are using Copilot in Teams more than others, right? Or maybe they're having a different function or a role type, but it's also possible that they don't know how it works, or they don't know that it exists, or they're using it wrong, so they're thinking it's not working. Right? So you need these insights to be able to, well, to very structurally run your Copilot pilot track. Okay. What else do we have here? Yeah, this is just a sample dashboard also very specifically on meetings, and it's showing you for the entire organization or one of the pilot teams their behavioral changes. So how many meetings did they join or did they attend before Copilot and after Copilot? And in this case, it's lower after Copilot. And the reason is quite easy, right? Because you can summarize meetings afterwards. You can interact with transcripts and ask, what did this person think about that particular topic that was discussed? Um, it's not on my slides, by the way, but Microsoft is now also rolling out a follow feature. So if you're sending out a meeting request to your colleagues, right now you can say yes, no, or tentative, or not answer. But let's say if I'm a manager and I say yes or tentative, then all of the people in the meeting will be waiting for me because I said yes, I will be joining. But actually, I said yes to three meetings at the same time. So people are waiting. Those are very expensive minutes. In the future, well, in the near future, I will be able to click follow. So the people know that I will be following the meeting, which means I get a notification when the meeting is done with a summary, with a link to the transcript where I can use Copilot to interact upon. And some more dashboards, some more information here. The next one is really also an interesting one. This one is comparing Copilot users to non-Copilot users. And also here with Viva Insights, you can filter out entire departments or function roles with or without Copilot license. So just imagine what you can do with this kind of information. Now, this impact dashboard, which I was not a big fan of before without the Viva Insights license, now does give me a lot of information. It tells me how many meetings were summarized. It's talking about a reduction in the attended meetings per user per week, how many people used the coaching actions in Outlook. So probably the quality of your email just rose, right? So a lot of information here, very interesting, but you do need a Viva Insights license. And the last topic here to show is the sentiment dashboard. So it's giving me more information than the one before without the Viva Insights license. But again, also here, very important from an employee happiness experience or employee experience, basically. This is very important information, which again, you could or should use to steer your Copilot ship. All right, so wrapping a little bit things up. So some conclusions here. Like I mentioned, I think this is clear. So for me, this classic ROI formula, which is out there everywhere, is just like hocus pocus, right? You cannot expect magic to happen automatically. And it's not as simple as they call a back of a napkin quick ROI calculation. We have no one size fits all approach. So we have our 5 principles. So select your knowledge workers, find enthusiastic managers, but also people within the team. Focus on these really relevant hero scenarios, which you can have access to in your organization through your center of excellence, and you can share it and identify new ones within the community. And you can also have a lot of data. There's also a lot of data out there today without even additional licenses to measure and to adapt and to steer upon. If you don't have already a lot of information on Copilot or you need just some inspiration, just know that I started, it was early this year, somewhere in January, if I'm not, it's on the slide, January 3, good reminder there. So I started a 30-day Copilot challenge, so 30 business days, so a bit over a month and a half, something like that. I posted very concrete, concise scenarios every day. So if you look for the hashtag or you want to connect on LinkedIn, feel free. I might have some additional scenarios lying around if you're looking for them. So just on demand, feel free to go look for that. So the main key takeaways from this session, from my perspective, is Copilot is all about time saving and reinvesting that time in real cases that generate actual business value on multiple levels. And that is for me, this is my vision of the real ROI of Microsoft Copilot. And please, let's connect on LinkedIn, scan the QR code or type in the URL. It's out there on the slide to continue the discussion. So I don't know, Shakir, did you
Yes, I am
have
here. Yes, I am here. I'm here.
questions or
I'm
you have
here.
questions
There's no
yourself?
question, but there is one comment, and it said like topic looks quite interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting, like how you put together this ROI thing, and then talk about those maths equation, and everything is not like math. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's a quite it yeah, as you mentioned that you've been involved in from August in rolling out the co-pilot. So it's kind of like the interesting debate that to go or not to go. And
Mhm,
obviously some organization are tight on budgets and they would like to see really a real outcome from the co-pilot. But again, I think it will eventually comes across. Yeah. So I think how it has been progressing with everything and all those demos and all the implementations. It looks so promising.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I I think the most discussions we had until recently were about show me what it can do, show me, give me the showcases, do
Mm,
some demos and or materials or scenarios. But this is the real discussion you need to have with your customers or within your own organization, because
exactly.
otherwise you're just implementing a technical solution. And
Mm,
maybe this should have been my title, but it's it's not a
exactly.
technical track, Copilot on itself. It's really a
Yeah.
change and adoption track.
But I think this Teams one, the Teams demo, like you are in the Teams and after the meeting, so you can have like those, bullet points as a matter of, and then you can put it into the templates and it just goes as a kind of a proper document. So
Mhm,
which looks so good, like if you think about the scenarios and then thinks about it, how many scenarios can fit in. It looks so good and it looks so promising. Yeah, as I just said, like it's not all about the maths. So yeah,
mhm,
yeah, I think this is the session itself is really good, and I really learned from it. It gives you a different, from my side, it gives me a different perspective that okay, how the organization is still like how th- how as a how as a company we need to approach the organization and how the organization they are like thinking from their side that okay to adopt it or not. Again, obviously it just comes with the cost as well, but it does satisfy the cost. That's the main question.
mhm.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Peter. And I hope that you will have a great day ahead of you. And it's a
Thank you.
really privilege and it's really pleasure to host you. And what we will do that we will put your session on our YouTube channel and I will tag you on our LinkedIn post. Yep.
Okay, thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thanks a lot. See you
Bye
later.
bye.
Cheers. Bye.